In this video, we are going to learn how to export our Flash movies to the popular SWIFT format and also take a look at some other exporting options. In addition to exporting as SWF, we're also going to take a look at creating and exporting your Flash content for iOS and Android applications. This lesson can be found in the Chapter 5 folder and it's named publish-export.fla. When you work in Flash to develop your animations in your movies, your working file is a .fla file. When you get ready to export or publish, sometimes it's called export and sometimes publish, there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. If you have your workspace or your stage selected, not really any of the objects, your Properties panel is going to show you the properties for your document. There's a button called Publish Settings that allows you to get to your settings very quickly. Let's click that guy. All right? By default, the SWF format is selected, and so is an HTML wrapper. The SWF is actually going to be your movie or your SWIFT file, and if you select SWF and also right here not only the checkbox but the word Flash, you can see all the output settings that you can choose from. Something that you may want to make a note of is right here at the top, and that is your target output. As this movie was created, our very latest Flash player was 11.2. I could export my project for a Flash player 11.2, or I could go back to 10.3 or earlier versions of Flash. If you're not using any sophisticated ActionScript or any fancy new features, it may be that you don't want to always publish in the latest and greatest version of Flash. You may want to go back a version or two just to prevent any kind of problems that might be encountered if people don't have the latest Flash player. We're okay for now. But before we move on, do take a note at this. We can also publish our content for Android and iOS, and we'll do that shortly. For now, let's choose Flash Player 11.2. And now we've covered the SWF. Let's go down and select HTML. Now, the HTML page that's going to be created is just a wrapper. It's just a plain, ordinary HTML page, but sometimes it's helpful to have one of those. So your SWF file has a place to reside, something to be in, similar to the way it's probably going to be a lot of times when you get it up onto the web, right? So the default settings for HTML are right here, and that is the output file name and some other dimensions about your movie. Now, we're going to leave all of these as is for now, but one other thing that I want to call your attention to, and that is where you publish your output. Right here, this little select a publish destination, this little folder, this is where you are going to want to publish your work. In the Chapter 5 folder, there's a folder called export_SWF, and we will just save our export for there. Okay, so that's our path. Not only will we need to do that for the HTML page, but we'll also probably want to go back here to the SWF and do the same thing for here. Just make sure that this guy is generated in the export.swf file and click Save. All right? Well, we're actually going to take a look at that a little bit later, some of the exporting options. So for now, let's just click Return. Well, is that the only way to export or render your project in the Properties panel? Actually, no. Let's look over at the File menu. When you go to File, you're going to notice that you can export or publish, or you have Publish Settings. Publish Settings, these are the exact same settings that we got to by clicking this button here in the Properties panel. So we kind of get the hang of that, right? Well, Publish, this is a quick way to export your SWF file very quickly, but you don't really get a lot of control over where it's exported. If you use this feature, you're going to find your exported SWF file in the same folder as your FLA file. Okay, so it's going to publish it there without any hassle. That's where it'll be. Well, what about export? What is that? Is that the same thing as publish? Well, export can publish, but it does a few other things. For example, you could export a selected image, you could export a selection, or you can export your movie, right? Well, let's check this guy. So this says, all right, well, you probably don't want an HTML page. You just want your SWF right here, and you're going to need to name it and designate a folder for it to reside in. For this one, let's just type demo.swf and we'll double check to make sure that the export_SWF folder is selected for Chapter 5, and then let's click Save. Okay, so everything should be rendered. So let's go and check and see if our SWIFT files have rendered and are published. What we'll do is we'll minimize Flash. Let's open our project files. Let's open the Chapter 5 folder, and let's open the Export SWF folder here. And this is where we'll see demo.swf. Now, the reason you don't see the HTML file and you don't see the SWF from before is because we actually canceled out of there. If we had have saved that, you would also see an HTML page here and an SWF file with our file name on it from our publish settings as well. All right, very good. So this is where you're going to find your rendered SWF file. And if you were to double click this file, it would open our SWF file and play it. All right? Well, for now, let's minimize this guy and let's go back to Flash. Let's open our document once again. And now let's talk about rendering for iOS and Android. So now that we've talked about exporting as an SWF, let's talk about one of the coolest new features in CS6, and that is the Adobe Air Mobile Content Simulator. This feature is an Air application and it functions like a desktop simulation for a mobile device like an Android and iOS. Let's take a look at that. Instead of working with the document that we have open here, let's experiment with a couple of templates. Let's go to the File menu and choose New, File and New. On the General category, we're going to see a list of all kinds of Flash documents that we can work with. You're going to notice Air for Android and Air for iOS are listed here, and the typical dimensions for those devices are listed here. Now, if we were to click one of these and click OK, we'd get a blank document, and this would be the width and the height of the blank document. For sake of this example, let's maybe choose Android and choose one of the templates. The Android templates are kind of cool, a great place to get us started. Well, new to CS6 is this fling template. Notice here the description. It says this template demonstrates momentum fling using tween objects. Okay, let's check it out. Let's click OK. Now we are going to need to save this file. So if we go to the File Save As menu, we can rename this file. Android, A-N-D-R-O-I-D, very good. I may already have a file, so if I do, I'll just overwrite it. I actually do, no problem. We'll replace that guy. Yes, we are converting maybe from 5.5. We're okay with that, so let's click Save. All right, well, to test this guy, we know that we can do a Command Return on a Mac or Control Enter. So we are just going to hit Command Return, and this time, when our Swift file export, we are also going to see the new Air application. It's a simulator for our mobile device that gives us such things as swipe options and display and touchscreen features. So let's check it out. Here's the SWF file, and over to the left you will see the simulator. Now here's the simulator for the device that we chose, and the first thing that we can do is we could actually change the rotation of the simulator. I could just pull this slider here over to the right to get it in landscape view. I could flip the orientation, and I could make some other adjustments to our Android if I needed to. I'm going to go here and click Reset for now. And what I really want to do is go down to Touch and Gesture, and let's turn this on, this little checkbox here. And notice that there are a lot of features that we can enable and test right here in the Android simulator. One of those is click and drag, press and tap, pan, zoom, swipe, all kinds of things. Let's maybe go with click and drag. All right, now some of these guys, if you're wondering how they work, for example, if I were to go down to swipe or zoom, you'll see instructions on how to use the simulator. For example, you'll see to put touch points and another touch points and then simulate. For now though, we're just going to do a click and drag on our little ball over here. And when we click with our touch point here and let go, we'll actually see the Android simulator kick in. So I'll let go of the mouse and you'll see that the ball continues to move. All right, very nice. A very great feature to CS6 is the Android and iOS simulator. That wraps it up for the Flash chapter. Be sure to check out the next chapter, which is Adobe Dreamweaver. We are going to learn how to create and deploy websites. We'll also learn the fundamentals of cascading style sheets, also known as CSS, and we're going to be sure to check out Dreamweaver's new CS6 features. See you then.